Well, good morning. Welcome to another day of Bible study as we are now in the middle of this new Party on Bible Study series where we are looking at the feasts, the food, the festivals, and the fellowship in the Bible. And this week, we are actually spending the entire week looking at Jewish festivals. And while I know that on first glance that may sound extremely boring, I have to tell you, it's not. I have learned so much in beginning to put together these festivals, and it actually is truly exciting. And I think one of the things that I have learned in South Florida, being around so many amazing and wonderful Jewish people, is that Jewish people know how to celebrate. If you have never been to a bar mitzvah or a bar mitzvah, you have to, a bat mitzvah. I mean, you have to go. You have to go. If you ever get an invite, you have to go. They are incredible, amazing celebrations. And in many ways, as wonderful as those things are, they pale in comparison to the celebrations in many ways here that God calls for in the Old Testament. And God usually seems as though he kind of calls for these in two different places. And so that's why today there are two separate passages. We have the Exodus passage, which is going to give you the background a little bit for the celebration itself. And then in Leviticus, we're going to have where God actually kind of implements specifically the celebration and puts it in stone as a yearly thing and says, no, this is something that I really, really want you to do. And it is the Feast of the Unleavened Bread. Now, this study is brought to you thanks to ChristTable.today. If you want to find out more about Christ Table, then go to this website, sign up for the email list. I have an email that I've been promising, but I am going to get out in the next day or two. There's just so much to fill you in. I want to make sure that I get it all in one email, not having to send multiple ones. And we also are so thankful for those of you who donate to help keep this ministry, this Bible study running. And I always send you a copy for free if you donate of all of our resources. And so we're thankful to have all of you who make that a priority. So when we come to today's passage in Exodus and in Leviticus, and today here on the Bible study, I'm just going to read the Leviticus portion. So the Exodus portion is homework for you. We are with the children of Israel as they are exiting under oppression and slavery in Egypt. The plagues have come and gone, and the final one is now about ready to take place, where they put the blood of the firstborn lamb on the doorposts. And this is going to really be the final act that causes Pharaoh to say, get out, no more of this. And so Moses and Aaron and ultimately God secure the freedom of the people of Israel. This is a momentous event in the lives not just of those people who are living, but really is one that they have been waiting on for centuries. They've been in Egypt for 500 years. And so no one who is alive or any of their parents or grandparents or great-grandparents remember what it was like to not be in slavery. So it has become a part of their culture. It is embedded in them. And before we start this morning, I want to ask this simple question. If you had to grab things and run, what would you take with you? Because this is what is about to happen to the children of Israel. They are going to have to get out of Egypt, and they're going to have to get out of Egypt quickly without much warning or without much notice. Well, you'd hope you'd take your kids with you. If you had pets, you probably would take your pets with you. But what would be on the list if you had 12 hours? What if you didn't have 12 hours? What if you only had 2 hours? What if you only had 30 minutes? Maybe less. What would you grab? What would you take with you? That is kind of what we have as a background to this festival, is these Israelites are now on the run when we come to Leviticus chapter 23, verses 6 through 8. I want to make sure. Yeah. Leviticus chapter 3, verses 6 through 8. On the next day, the 15th day of the month, you must begin celebrating the festival of unleavened bread. This is the festival that they're going to celebrate yearly as a reminder of this moment where they ran from Egypt. This festival to the Lord continues, get this, for 7 days. And during that time, the bread you must eat must all be made without yeast. Why is that? Well, the thought is that they simply didn't have time for their dough to rise. And so this is the reminder of what it's like to not have time to do everything that you want to do. As they were on the run, they were always on the move and did not have time to wait for their bread to rise. So they ate bread that had been made without yeast, that was unleavened, flat cakes, as it were, something more along the lines of pancakes than Wonder Bread, right? On the first day of the festival, all of the people must stop their ordinary work and observe an official day for Holy Assembly. Now, it's interesting that this falls on Memorial Day, because Memorial Day is also one of those holidays where we stop, by and large, our official work, and we take time to remember and to celebrate something. And so there are some parallels here in the ways in which we do these two things. Now, oftentimes I see and hear tension between those people who celebrate on Memorial Day and those people who really see Memorial Day as an opportunity to do something more sacred, a sacred remembrance and honoring of those who have fallen. And so sometimes those kind of competing values can really cause conflict as to whether this should be a celebration or whether this should be a remembrance. It seems as though on this that God kind of is allowing for both of those things, a remembrance that also takes place in the midst of a grand celebration. And for 7 days, I love this, you must present special gifts to God. And then on the 7th day, the people must again stop all of their ordinary work to observe an official day of Holy Assembly. So it starts with the Day of Remembrance and ends with the Day of Remembrance, and then it goes from there in between, probably to much celebration. Gifts accompanies celebration, correct? Now, this is a very important festival for the Jewish people. Definitely one of the high watermarks of their story as a people is the Exodus. We know that they actually continue to remember this annually, and they still do. In Bible times, in the New Testament times, they did, because Jesus, the triumphal entry, Maundy, Thursday, the burial on Good Friday, Holy Saturday, Resurrection Sunday, all of these events happen during the festival of unleavened bread. Jesus was in Jerusalem for that 7-day feast that was a remember of the Exodus event. We call it now today often Passover, but Passover was just simply 1 day out of those 7. And so obviously that is the Maundy, Thursday service, obviously, that many of us celebrate, or if you've ever celebrated a Passover Seder, but that's just simply 1 day. That festival is in the broader context of an entire week of the festival of unleavened bread. It's why Jesus was in Jerusalem so early before the Passover, was because he was there to celebrate the entire week. And the key word there is celebration. He was there for a celebration. They would have shared good food. They would have shared great drink. If you've ever been to a Maundy, Thursday service, or if you've ever been to a Passover Seder, oftentimes whenever Christians celebrate them, they are, they're not very much fun. They're more remembrance events. And though that was a part of it, they would have been very joyful. They would have been very lively and would have been very fun in the original context. And today, they still are, in the way that many Jewish people celebrate them. And this is something that points to what I've been saying, and I hope you're beginning to get it, is that God loves huge shindigs. 7 days for a festival. 7 days. That's a really long time to celebrate something. Think about that. And it's God himself who instituted it. God himself who instituted the time and said, I don't want you to just do this with one meal and remember the Passover. No, that is not enough time. And if you've ever been to a Seder, you know that those things are like 3 hours long. Not enough time. Not enough time for a meal. You need a whole week. You need a whole week. And I'm going to ask you a few days during that week to actually take the whole day off so that you can celebrate. That's the God we follow. A God who loves huge, long shindigs. But let us not remember the reason why that celebration for 7 days was happening. Because they had been delivered from something that deserved 7 days, a week's worth of celebration. And I wonder this, have you ever been delivered from something so great that a week-long celebration would be in order? You know, many of you immediately, your mind said, my ex. Yes, I have been delivered from something that was so great and so momentous that it deserved maybe a month-long celebration. It's that no good ex of mine. Now, I don't want to make light of that, but maybe you do have something in your life that it just is so momentous. Maybe it's not someone else. Maybe it's a workplace environment. Maybe it's a religious environment. Maybe it is something that you struggled with for years. Maybe it was an emotional or depression issue inside of yourself, and through therapy or through medication, you finally surmounted that. Maybe it was the passing of someone who was very close to you, and even though there is still that pain and that missing chair, God still has allowed you to move on, and you've been given blessings after that. I don't know what it is, but I think for many of us, if we were to stop and think long enough, and maybe we should, we have some things in our life that have been so momentous, that have been so amazing, that it deserved a week-long celebration. And this is what God is saying to them is this in your life is so momentous that I want you to celebrate. I want you to celebrate this each and every year. I think that perhaps we should celebrate those things that come to mind every year in our family. And maybe those stories and those celebrations require us or would encourage us to include our community, to include our children, our grandchildren in those celebrations as a reminder to them of what God has done in the life of their family. How amazing would that be for a grandparent each year to hold an annual celebration with their grandkids and with their great-grandkids, a wonderful meal, invite the entire family over, and tell a story, serve food that's somehow or other related to the event. Put this on the calendar and use it as an opportunity to remind the young people that God works by showing them how God has worked through you and for you in your story. Imagine if your grandparents and great-grandparents would have done that. Maybe they did. Maybe I'm making an assumption here, but many of ours didn't. Imagine if they would have. And so I also want to point out that line in there that says that each and every day that they were required to present presents to God, gifts to God. I wonder what you might give God. Now, it doesn't tell us what they presented, and I could go back into the history of that, but much more importantly, I think for us, it might be, have you ever thought about what you might present to God, especially during a season where you're celebrating with thankfulness the blessings and the freedom that He has given to you? That's another connection of Memorial Day, right? What might you present? What might you present to God? how would you honor him and thank him and do so in a way? This is obviously public as well. And then finally, I think that the thing that is important for us to remember about this is that God says, I want you to do this every year. I want you to keep a rhythm of doing this. And to me, that is a realization and a recognition that we are many times forgetful people. Maybe you had difficulty thinking of something that would deserve a week-long celebration, something so momentous in your life. And this is why in the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, it's all about remembering. Why the Lord's Supper is all about remembering. Why these celebrations that we're going to encounter are all about remembering. Is that it's not just the Jewish people, it's all of us. We're all the same in this way. We're forgetful. We forget the way God has moved on our behalf. And we can only see right in front of us the struggle that we're facing. And we forget that God has taken care of us each and every step of the way before. And so we worry and stress over what's right here. We're forgetful people. And not only are we prone to forgetting how God has worked for us and through us, if we don't continue to remember the ways in which God has done that, then we're also prone to forgetting God himself. Many of us have forgotten God for a really long time, and maybe this Bible study is our walking back to him or our working on remembering him. And if so, 2 thumbs up. Congratulations. You're on the right path. You're doing the right thing. And there is no better way to recircuit and reorient your idea of who God is and what God loves and what God cares about than this study. Because many of us have been taught all of the wrong things for a really long time about God. And it is time to finally set the record straight. And this week, we learned that God is a God who loves a great party. And so should we. Until tomorrow, party on.